You might want to buckle up for this one, because in a few seconds, I'll be talking to one of the most incredible and mind-boggling lyricists of our time. An MC's MC, an absolute genius with words, relentless with his attack on any microphone he touches, a storyteller unlike any you've heard before, and someone who inspired so many that followed. One of the deepest and most humble people you'll ever meet. It's an honor and a privilege to have on the 521 Sofa Chat today, the enigma that is Chester P.
Happening.
Bro, I've been waiting a long time to do this one.
It's been a long time coming.
Your story is like deeper than most. There's so many twists and turns. There's so many things that everybody knows about you, but I feel there's still things that are hidden. So the generic questions I want to ask, but I also want to go real deep. So I hope you're ready for this.
I'm ready, man.
All right, so let's start off with the generics. Highbury.
Highbury.
You grew up in Highbury. Mm-hmm. What was it like?
I guess it's ultimately it comes down to if you're somewhere for long enough, it just becomes home. So whatever your environment, it's like anything. You know, a person who has a dog who mistreats the dog, as long as you feed that dog every single day, twice a day, or whatever its requirements are, the dog will always get used to the ill treatment. It's just, so wherever you grow up, if there's bad things going on, you get used to it very quickly. You know what I mean? The human mind is a very easy thing to condition to its environment. But at the same time as saying that, we are all products of an environment that, to a degree, you know what I mean? So really, it was fun growing up there. It had its ups and it had its downs. I'm still local to the area, and there's a lot of ghosts there that haunt me in a negative way, but there are a lot of beautiful, positive things that happen there too. So it's kind of a catch-22 for me. But like any council estate anywhere, like where we were, it wasn't as bad as other places surrounding us. So in that respect, we kind of got away luckily. There's a whole lot worse council estates we could have grew up on, and we could have had worse guidance as well than my parents offered me. But ultimately, it taught us everything we knew about each other. It's where the Highbury hoodlums come from, which went on to be the Berry crew. It's how I know people like Skinnyman and Mongo, who are the Mud family. It's how I became a part of that. So really, you couldn't change a thing about it. It's where I was born. It's where I was bred. I enjoyed a great deal of growing up in Highbury. An estate to me is like a village, you know what I mean? Like you get to know people. I'm a very community-driven person. So as I grew into it and I became an adult on the same estate I was a child on, because my family had a home there for 40-odd years. So you get to know everyone gets to know you. You know, the elderly people know you, they know they can respect you and trust you. If they know if someone was trying to hurt one of them, they know that I would be there with my friends and we'd help them, you know what I mean? So you grow up in a certain way and you learn a certain thing. My elders used to reprimand us if we got out of line. There was you know, it's almost like a military kind of designed authoritarianism, you know. So it's like our elders, we had to answer to the stuff that we did as kids when I grew up. I'm not sure it's like that anymore, but you know, if we did something that was out of line, our elders would give you a slap for it, and my parents weren't going to give me a slap. So in many respects, it was probably the most healthy thing that could happen to me. But in general, growing up was growing up like it is for everybody, wherever you grow up. You know, you have moments of boredom, you have moments of fun, you have moments of being bullied, you have moments of probably being an arsehole yourself. And all of those things amalgamate into the experience of childhood naivety. So I reflect on that in a positive manner, you know, but at the end of the day, it was life. Bad things happened, but I'm choosing to try and stay in the lane of a more positive view of it all, you know.
That word, authoritarian, have you ever put that in a lyric and struggled with it?
Yeah, it's one of them words that I struggle to say. I mean, anything what has the word author in front of it, I get as far as author, and then I realize, well, that's me. I own it. It's my authorship.
But you can extend also to authority.
But then, exactly, and that's when I start struggling to say the word, because it's almost like someone's infringing my right to be my own author. And, you know, I only sail one ship and it's my authorship, you know what I mean? And that travels me through any seas I need to travel on. It is an interesting word, actually, but I struggle to say authority or authoritarianism.
But it's mad how like the first half is quite positive.
Yeah.
And then the next
the
half
rest
becomes
of it is sort of like crippling,
yeah,
and suffocating.
It really is,
yeah.
you know what I mean?
And it's like they give you authorship, but then they give you... They take
it back. It's like give it, take it back.
They give you the language, but they don't give you the actual actions. Yeah. But you know, we are in crazy times, so
yeah, of course. Me being an artist myself, a lyricist, I know that the neighborhood that I was in shaped the kind of lyricist that I became. So say, for example, you were you came from the valleys in Wales or something. Would that have turned you into a different kind of artist? Do you think you would be as deep in your lyrical content as you are?
Because it's a hypothetical question, I can only really have a hypothetical response to that. I have no idea how I would be if I didn't grow up where I grew up. I did grow up where I grew up. I guess it stands to reason. It's like, look, quantum physics and everything. It stands to reason that atoms, neutrons, protons, and all the things that are going to twist my tongue up trying to explain at this current moment in time, in a layman's terms, all of them mutate depending on who's observing it. So an atom can either be a wave or it can be a particle, right? And it depends on who's looking at it as well. So it is all about the environment. So therefore we are basically skin packed with protons, neutrons, atoms, and all these different things. So then, of course, the environment must have effect on the end result. That said, we also have to make sure we never stop taking accountability for the people we are and the choices we make in our environments, you know what I mean? Because it's an easy thing to make excuses for ourselves and not take accountability for ourselves. And it's a very important part of owning your life story. And again, this authorship thing comes into it, is, you know, if we're going to take ownership of our authorship, then we have to take accountability for the mistakes that get made. And it can't be like, oh, you know, well, that's just karma and that's this and that's that. But we have to say, well, a part of this has to be to do with me and the choices I'm making.
The reason why I asked that question is because I feel like maybe along your journey, some of the places that you traveled inspired what you wrote.
Yeah.
You know, so what I'm trying to get at is, you know, certain things that you write are really deep, meaningful, they touch a lot of people, and then other things, there's a comical side, an almost cynical side.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So do you think that some of those sections maybe came from the places you traveled?
Entirely. I mean, for me, everything I see, everything I do, every word when I travel around, when I'm on a train or a bus or whatever means of travel, if I'm sitting in a car, the primary thing I am doing is looking at words. And I'm taking words and I'm scrambling them, I'm spoonerizing them, I'm turning them upside down, and I'm doing all this kind of stuff that people used to tell me was dyslexic, but I'm not sure it's anything to do with any kind of learning difficulty. I think it's actually just the way my mind works with words, because I'm fascinated by them. And I'm quite fast. My mind is manic. I have mania. I have episodes of mania. So it translates itself with words. And I tend to, wherever I go, I'm absorbing all of the information that I see, especially literature. So I'm absorbing it. So anywhere I have been. But the main reason why one minute I'll be saying something so profoundly kind of sad, and another time I might be talking about something that was quite cynically comical and seemed to not give a shit about anything that I was talking about in my last song, is because I am a person is not a one thing, you know what I mean? We are an emotion. We are an emotionally equipped functional kind of entity with the ability to express more than one emotion. So I'm not just sad, I'm not just depressed, I'm not just happy, I'm not just manic, I'm not just this, I'm not just drunk, I'm not just any one thing, I am everything, you know what I mean? Everything that makes a person the person they are. And we find this going on in society a whole lot. You know, people who are incarcerated, they do something wrong. What society has told us is wrong, what we're conditioned to think is wrong, whether it's wrong or not. You know, survival doesn't come into it in their eyes, but people get told, you've done something wrong. We're going to lock you in a cage and you're going to stay there until you realize that one moment of your life you are going to spend the rest of your life regretting. And to me, that's not rehabilitation. These are the same sort of things we're talking about, you know what I mean? Ultimately, it's like, I am not one thing, you know, I will not be isolated and be expected to behave as one thing. My music will not behave as one thing, and the observer may even change the way my music behaves just by observing it, because a lot of what we're looking at is our own perception of what we're looking at. You see what I mean? And the thing you're looking at can often change and mutate to suit the way you are observing it. And this is quantum physics. This is an amazing thing to look into. It's mind blowing. I mean, I'm not educated in school and stuff, so it's taken me a long time to sort of get my head around being educated by society. But some of science I find absolutely mind blowing, and it answers a lot of questions. Quantum psychology, quantum physics.
I find it interesting that you are not educated, but yet, you know, through your music, you could tell that you're not uneducated.
No.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of depth that the educated couldn't get grasp of.
Yeah.
You know,
There's two different sorts of education, you know what I mean? Like, there are people who will be educated by society and the system and our educative systems, which is, there's nothing wrong with it. It just didn't work for me as a human being. It just didn't resonate with me. It made me feel suffocated. It made me feel like I was being forced to think things that didn't agree with my personal way of living. Whereas the way I've educated myself was out of choice. So it is, I've looked at things that I've been interested in, and I've tried to understand them to the best of my ability. I have an open mind. I'm always prepared to be wrong. And I think the problem with systematic education is it teaches you to stay within the box that they need you to stay within for you to be the autonomous kind of reaction to society that is expected, because you can't be a cog in this society if you are not autonomously prepared to be conditioned to be that cog. People like me who were not prepared to be that, it's not because there was something wrong with me or I have an educational problem, it's because I was not prepared to allow my mind to be taken out of where it belonged. Because as I keep quoting and I keep referencing, there are different laws for different people, you know, like we're all different. So a lion is the king of the jungle. It has a different law to an antelope. If it didn't, the antelope don't stand a chance, and we have to accept that, you know what I mean?
can you talk us through a typical day in your household when you were young?
Obviously, I grew up with my brother, who's Farma G, one half a task force. So we're blood brothers, so we have the same mother and father. But his experiences are going to be completely different to mine because he was first born and I was second born. So when he was born, he was used to dad being around because dad hadn't got famous. When I was born, dad was already gone. He was already famous. He wasn't around. So I never knew dad like that. So there was a different dynamic already. We share a different experience already. So my neediness is different to his neediness. But ultimately, the things I remember most about growing up is wanting the attention from my father that we weren't getting, you know what I mean? And it made me resent music to some extent because I knew it was music and alcohol that was getting the attention that I wanted. I don't know about my brother, but that's me, you know.
So was he living in the house with you, or he was?
No, he was living there once he got back from tour, and they got grandiosely ripped off. The taxman came in, and we were just left more impoverished than we'd ever been. And you know, we struggled financially as a household. And he had substance problems and he had alcohol problems, and we really suffered from that, you know what I mean? And I remember it clearly, and that has a big part to do with who I am. I mean, my brother has posted some vocal audio recordings of him rapping and me in the background when he's like 9, 10, maybe 11. So thereabouts, you know, and I'm basically 2.5 years young, his junior. So on that same recording, which hasn't been posted, is recordings of me rapping as well. And the things I'm actually rapping about is being in a club that gets raided by police. I'm 8 years old, man, and it gets raided by police, and they beat me up, and they punch me in my face, and they kick me in the belly, and they tell me, it didn't. I don't think it happened. You know what I mean? I just had an understanding of that kind of world, man. I guess it didn't happen. You know what I mean? But I was rapping about it. And we don't smoke fags, and we don't watch telly. I don't drink beer. I don't want beer bellies. Boom, boom, boom. And then fast forward 38 years later, and here I am with a beer belly and a cigarette in my pocket. Whereas my brother, he kind of kept it real to his original kind of roots. And my brother, he went the opposite way. He didn't want to really, you know, he never got into wanting to drink lots and to do and I kind of followed my dad's footsteps. So these things are all and they have a massive part of who I am and who he is. You know, but I can't speak for him. I can only speak for what happened to me. But ultimately, my relationship with my father was always a struggle for attention. My relationship with my mother was always empathy. Like, shit, you're really dealing with a lot.
So you were quite aware at a young age what was really going on?
Oh, it was there. I knew it, 100%, man. 100%. 100%. I mean, anyone who would have known me then would have thought, man, this kid is just years beyond his time. It's going to be unhealthy in the end, you know what I mean? Because you're already in the wrong place, you know what I mean?
Again, this is one of those stories where I've heard it so many times, but for anybody who doesn't know, do you want to explain where you got the name from and why that particular name?
It was just the person I resonated to. I mean, I'm a huge fan of graphic novels and comics, not just graphic novels, comics in general. Like, my parents used to read a lot of them, so because they're northerners, they're from up Geordieland. And my parents had a lot of kind of comics and comic books. My dad was always reading Wizard and Chips and stuff like that, you know, and we just read it. we were kids, so it was all right for us to read it. But the Bruins and all Woolly and Scottish ragtime papers, Andy Cap, everything. You know, they were a little bit too young to be hippies and a little bit too old to be punks. So they were sort of crushed in this compression of hippie punkism. So it was almost like peace, love, and anarchy. Like I love destroying love kind of thing. It was almost just this crazy thing, you know.
Big contradiction.
Just really strange, interesting, and like there was no real foundation to the chaos, and it was like, okay, this is universal.
Do you feel that's transcended into your
Oh
life?
yeah, but I respect it because I sway towards the chaos theory in general. You know what I mean? Like I do sway towards everything being chaotic as opposed to there being some kind of order. So anarchy works for me in that respect.
You say that, but when I see all your posts on social media, when I'm in, you know, I started following you about a year ago because that's when I discovered you were there. But 95% of what you post is all really positive, and
some people don't find it positive. I guess it's perception, isn't it? It's how somebody wants to look at something. Like I don't find it a negative thing to talk about hard things. You know what I mean? Like for me, it's positive to talk about difficult times. I tend to want to talk about what's bothering me. I'm quite honest, you know. Like for me, is that there's only one thing in the world that I really struggle with, and that's not knowing where I stand with anyone. You know, like for me, just saying to me, man, I just don't like you. Like when we see each other, can you go that way and I can go that way? And I say, of course, man, that's great, beautiful, lovely. You know what I mean? No problem at all, you know, like, but it's when everyone's like, oh, and then they go around, I really don't like him. It's like, you know, everyone's talking about someone, but no one's talking to anyone. And I just don't operate like that. I personally, it's not even a superiority kick. If I've got something to say to another human being, I will just say it to that person. I don't need to talk about that to anyone else. And sometimes I hear, yeah, this, that, and that, and I think to myself, well, I don't want to know about anyone else's business.
but you being the person you are with words, it's like you're really articulate with everything. So
This is a problem, yeah. It puts me in situations where I'm very conscious of my ability to talk. And then I have to be careful who I'm talking to, how I'm talking to them, because I don't want to feel manipulative. I don't want to feel like I'm bullying people with a lesser ability to communicate with their words. And I don't want to put them in a situation where they feel inferior and I'm constantly second guessing how I'm making somebody else feel by talking to them. But my only intention in life ever is to be respectful and humble towards people.
but that comes across.
Yeah, I hope so. And obviously, you know, people can push the wrong buttons and all of that goes out the window.
Their problem,
but that's
not yours.
fine. That's their problem.
Their problem,
yeah,
not yours.
It really
So,
will.
yeah.
Yeah. It really is. Yeah.
WKD, Angel Face Terror. You know, can you just give us a little insight on that?
What a beautiful time.
Because that was when I first heard of you.
Yeah, I mean, that's when I first heard of myself, to be honest. I must admit, you know. That's really when I really first noticed myself.
Okay.
You know, look, I was at school, I was a kid. It was called Cream of the Crop. It was put on by a bunch of guys called the Baskervilles. Kosher, Drizzo, and there was a bunch of them. I forget all of their names, which is sad, so I apologize to all of them. But they used to put on this event, and it was a battle, you know, and they would get the crowd to shout out words, and you would write down the 5 words, and each freestyler had to use them words. And it was a formula that resonated with me so much because we freestyled at that point in time. You know, when me and my brother found out that rappers actually wrote raps, we were offended.
So you never wrote anything?
Me and my brother were like, what? What, Slick Rick wrote la-di-da-di? No way. Like, we got upset, man. Me and him nearly had a falling out. We were like, Jesus, what? I'm going out, I'm going to hit someone. Like, we were really upset with life, man. Like, we couldn't believe that people actually wrote their lyrics. And then we started doing it. And we was like, actually, this makes sense. Yeah, I can check for it. But what we were about in terms of battling, it was freestyle. And I have never, ever battled any human being and not freestyle.
I used to hear people talking about this guy called Angel Face Terror.
Angel Face
And it's
Terror.
only recently I found out that's you.
Yeah, well, they used to write it as Angle Face Terror. So they'd call me up and they'd go, Angle Face Terror. I said, well, why would you think of them? Like, come on, it's not going to be an angle face terror. Like, what am I, geometric shapes over here? You know what I mean? Like, Jesus. Angle face. Like, I always just think of one of them triangle rulers, just like, oh. But no, we had a great lot of fun back then, man. And the battling, you know, we learned a lot about performance, about humility. And yeah, you know, sometimes it went pear-shaped and people said the wrong thing, and yeah, it was what it was, man. It was fun.
Your very good friend, Mongo.
Mongo. Yeah.
Yeah, he asked me to ask you a question.
Okay. Hello, man.
Do you want to say it? Yeah, so Mongo's asked me to ask you a question, and he said something about an album that you had that you had recorded and that never got released, and he wants to know about Unknown Dangers.
Yeah.
So do you want to tell us a little bit about that? Because I have seen something online that is called that.
Yeah, now that's a new version of it.
Right.
It's like, I don't know when it was, in 94, 93 maybe. I must have wrote a song called Unknown Dangers Exist, I think. And it was just a song about some guy who went out and was doing some crime, and some people caught him robbing their car and ended up like putting a bit of a beating on him. He ended up in a coma. And there was actually some truth to the story, but I changed it slightly. And he ended up in a coma and blah, blah, blah. And it was just a case of saying, you know, just be careful what you're doing, because unknown dangers exist around every corner. You never know, you know. That would be the song Mongo was referring to. And I believe, you know, it might have...
It was a song, not an album.
That was a song on a kind of body of work that I'd done.
Okay.
But none of it ever got released. I don't have a recording of that. Someone might have a recording of that. It's uncertain. But I think it kind of spurred the fluctuation of that particular style that caught on, that people associate with me.
That's exactly what Mongo said.
Yeah.
He goes, that style gave birth to the 10,000 MCs that decided to become Chester
I
clones.
think that's the truth. I think that's what he's referring to, if I think about it. You know, it's hard for me to sit here and say things like that, because it for people who might like look up to me in a certain way, I don't want to make them feel like I'm being disrespectful or condescending. Oh, you took my style, whatever. Yeah, shit. The words are words, man. You know what I mean? We all say what we gotta say. Ultimately, I think that particular style on that tune though was kind of the birth of you know. Some people will say, maybe that come from Eminem, but we were doing that before Eminem come around us. So maybe Eminem was doing it himself. I'm not saying he copied what we were doing. He never heard of us, but we certainly didn't copy what he was doing. We don't know that, but we certainly didn't copy him.
Yeah.
I think in general, that whole style, a lot of English hip-hop following that moment in time kind of incorporated that style. It caught people's attention, you know, and people wanted to mimic it.
Yeah, and that was quite a distinct time, because before that, a lot of the rappers used to kind of rap in American accents, and they used to do whatever. So there was like a distinct change when you yourself, you know, Black Twang, when they came in, you know what I mean? There was like suddenly this use of our own accents and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, whatever you did, it kind of spiraled out of control and gave birth to a lot of MCs.
It did, apparently so, man. Yeah. When we first started doing this hip hop thing, the only influence we had, it's American music. You know what I mean? So we're going to start sounding American at first. That's how we're going to mimic it. This is what happens in a lot of European countries who have MTV, and that's their only way of learning English. They pick up on Americanisms, and I'll go to some of these countries and the way they talk to me, it's like, oh, you're fully Americanized. And then at first you might think, oh, you know, and have some kind of judgment or then you think, well, who am I judging anyone for? You're just talking out, that's your accessibility. That's where you are. That's where you came in. You know what I mean? So it's, you know, ultimately, I do feel like we should all talk in our own accents, and I do feel like we should all talk about what we know. That brings a uniqueness and an individuality. You know, the music can be like a fingerprint. You know, it can have such a unique thing that you can learn a lot from it about a person's life.
And it doesn't happen overnight.
And it doesn't. It takes a lifetime of art and emotion to understand yourself. But we all, you know, as artists, we're all looking at our world through our mediums. So, you know, a camera person sees the world through a camera, a writer sees the world through a notebook, and a person who draws sees the world through their drawings. They're just different mediums to express ourselves. Funnily enough, the one that we've chosen is one that uses the voice. So if our first influence in doing that has got an American accent, it does take you a minute to learn the confidence and understand the character of yourself to be confident enough to actually portray that across. I guess once upon a time when Eric Clapton was stealing the blues off of the 1920s legends, he probably sung his blues songs in a shitty American accent, you know what I mean? And then went on to be really racist and pretend like he ain't got nothing to do with black culture and hasn't lived his whole life raping and pillaging black culture. But let's leave Eric Clapton alone. I really hate that guy.
Yeah, I know quite a lot of people who actually do as well. I think there was a moment when I kind of felt a little bit sorry for him because his son had died. But that was about it.
Life happens, man. Yeah, I feel sorry for him for that.
Your sort of brushes with graffiti. What can you tell us about that? Because, you know, we're all beginning to find out. Obviously, we knew from when you did Graph the Bus Up.
It was the first one. Yeah, Graph Origines.
Well, Graph Origines was the one on the new mic order. So, yeah, I remember that one. But then the one that really became prominent was the Graph the Bus Up.
I mean, that's because we took Pharoah Monch's beat. You know what I mean? Ultimately, that's what makes that beat, that tune so classic. Sometimes it makes me happy, sometimes it makes me fed up that the fact that probably one of our most popular songs is one that we completely actually ripped off. His pattern, the vocal pattern, everything is just a complete... Probably what triggered things like GLC, Goldie Looking Chain and stuff, to be honest.
I was going to ask you about them as well.
Yeah, I mean, we had them, we were one of the first people to have them on tunes.
Wicked.
Just, you know, we've done that with a few artists, but that's us. So, yeah. But ultimately, we started with graffiti. So my brother, he's very good at it.
So when you say you started with graffiti, if you were rapping at 8 years old, how old were you when you were doing graffiti?
Oh, mate. I was a wild little kid, man. Like when we actually start getting it into perspective what I was doing at the age groups. But that's because the people I hung around with were older than me. So I used to get in, you know what I mean? Like, and they used to look after me, and it was fine. A lot of my brother's friends would always look after me, and if they were going out, I could go with them, or I could stay around my own age group. So I had kind of the best of both worlds. I was a bit spoilt. And, you know, it's like popularity kind of followed us around. And I guess because my brother was quite good at the things he was doing, people just accepted me. But I was really bad at it. You know, I couldn't do graffiti.
Can you do it now?
No, not really. Not in a way where I'd like try and show off about it. I can definitely rap. I can't do graffiti, you know what I mean? But we used to try breakdancing, then you'd see the graffiti on the breakdance mats, and then we think, I want to do that. And I was just going from one thing to another, trying to find something I was good at. My brother was just good at all of it, and I was just like, shit, man, I got to find something. And finally I landed on rapping and was like, okay. But, you know, graffiti started it, and it's hard when I talk about things like that because there's so many important people who have such a massive part in me growing up, and I always forget to name them all because I'm always trying to remember to name people. But there's somebody I often want to remember and never do, and I can right now, so I'm going to just say right now, from RCS, there's a guy called Knock, who used to live up the road to us on an estate, a much bigger estate, on a much worse off estate. And he was just a legendary guy. Like, you know, for me, he's one of the coolest characters I can remember ever meeting in graffiti, especially. And he showed me a lot of respect and time, and went out of his way doing silver dubs with my name, and like they really looked after me as a kid, you know. And I used to get about walking train tracks in my roller skates and doing crazy, just the most bizarre things, man. And it was an interesting time to be alive.
How do you think those people see you now? Like,
over the past 10 months, he's contacted me, particularly Knock, you know, under one format or another, and said to me, "Oh, bruv, I've only just worked out who you are." You know what I mean? Like, geez, I actually remember you guys so well. Like, I heard you saying my name on one of your songs, and like, fuck, it took me a minute to realize who you are. And I was like, oh man, like, I can't even tell you how important you were to our growing up.
See, that's the disadvantage of taking your name out of books.
Well, yeah, but no one knows who you really are. Well, eventually they get to know. But he was a cool guy, man, you know, and like even the Hustlers Convention record from 1989, I think we might even have been stole that at his house. I'm sorry, bro. I think I might have stole that at his house. I hate to even, or some, no, you know what it was? I actually stole at your house, bro. Like, horribly. I think me and my brother stole the London Posse 12-inch with beatbox reggae style on it.
Wow.
And Sipo, rest in peace. You know, magnificent moments in time, and it's got his tags on it and everything. So I know it was his.
Do you want to give it back to him?
My brother's got it. All right, but no, I think we did actually steal that, which is disgraceful. He's probably the first time he's hearing this. But yeah, I mean, what a time. We used to knock, you know, and he was in a big crew called RCS, which was the Radicals, and that was Mace and all them guys, and my brother got friendly with them, and we knocked about. Mace used to introduce me to all different kinds of hip-hop. He put me onto Public Enemies, he put me onto De La Soul and things like that. So they were pivotal parts of my growth as a child, you know what I mean? Because I was really young. And all them writers, all the who went on to be DDS, all them early guys, and Drax, everyone, you know. And again, like I say, when we get to talking about certain things, there's so many names that I want to mention because everybody was so important to me as a human being. I sincerely mean it. Like it was mad important, and still is to this day, mad important to me, the graffiti scene and the vibration it creates in the world, and the colours, and just the sheer rebellion of it, and the anti-establishmentarianism of it.
Moving on to one of your Notorious battles. Now, I've heard so many different versions of this because there wasn't anything to document it in terms of like cameras and all that. It's maybe someone's got it, but I've not seen it.
I've not seen.
But what I'm saying is I've heard so many different stories because I wasn't there. So what I want to hear from your mouth is common.
Yeah. You know what, right? It was a Jurassic 5 event, and me and Mongo were drunk, and it was in Camden, and we've bullied our way in there in Dingwalls. And we're kind of just like staggering around on stage, and we are worse for wear. We've had too much drink. You know, we're both wobbling and falling on each other and just like holding each other up, you know, sleeping, resting foreheads on each other on the stage. It's like, you're right, man, yeah, I'm all right. Sure. And we're kind of just doing what we did at that time in our lives. And, you know, it only takes like something like that to switch off the drunkenness and go, what? Yeah, what, you want a battle, bruv? All right. But like that, somebody offered us the open mic, which might not have been the best idea, but we got it and we just wouldn't give it back. And kind of we just kept rapping, and I was just braggadocious at the time, and I was battling a lot of people and felt quite big for my boots. And I was saying, you know, anyone wants to come and take the mic off me, come and take it. And then this big dude come over like he was at a Green Mile or something. Yo, man. I'm like, yo, you all right, bro? Yo, you want to battle someone? I'm looking at this guy thinking, Jesus, really? Does it have to be you, though? I said, well, who? And he said, my man, Common Sense. I said, yeah, bring that guy, man, bring him. So he came. That's how it happened.
And that's before you dropped the sense.
He lost all his sense that night. I know that, but he instigated it. I didn't ask him to come on stage. He asked someone to come and like offer me out in his real passive-aggressive manner, and then come on stage, and you know we were met with kind of like at first trying to be physically intimidating because this dude's a bit big, you know what I mean? But Mongo is like, you know, he's his own pit bull, you know. They're trying to take my hat, and we're like, what? And taking their shit back off them, and we're like, no, that ain't gonna work, you know. And they realize, okay, look, they're not scared of us, so what are we gonna do? And it sort of went lyrical, and then there were some racial cards being drawn, and people didn't like that. And to be honest, it went on for about 30 minutes. And
so
it's
clarifying, the racial cards was from them. Not
yeah, they were pulling out some kind of like, oh, white people shouldn't rap stuff, which is cool, you know what I mean? To be honest, I can appreciate I can understand that. I'm not Elvis Presley, you know what I mean? I'm not trying to I'm not Eric Clapton. I'm not, you know what I mean? Then people revolt me, so I kind of get it. That didn't bother me as much, but it bothered the crowd. You see what I mean? Because the majority of them were white Camdenites, you know what I mean? Who had a lot of love for Mud Family. So it's kind of like, oh, you've just shot yourself in the toe. I wouldn't go as far to say I won that battle. I certainly didn't lose it. He come up to me after and sort of tried to hug me, and I was a bit like, nah. And he said, oh, bro, I'm jet lagged, man. That's why I lost. I was like, yeah, well, I've drank 10 cans of Kestrel, bro, and I still won. I've never tried to build my career off the back of doing that. You know what I mean? To be honest, if I watched it, I'd probably be quite embarrassed by it. I've never seen it. I don't want to see it. And it's one of them things where the like legend is probably more
myth.
Yeah, it's better than the reality of it. The reality was I was drunk, he was jet lagged. It was a shit battle, and both of us probably regretted it. You know what I mean? Like, I have no animosity towards him, and whatever he has towards me, he probably doesn't even remember. I mean, he's quite a big cat in his own industry.
I want to know what you think the outcome would have been if you and MCD got into a battle.
Darren?
Yeah.
Oh God, I would never have battled Darren. Jesus, nah, man. He was
that
like,
guy was a monster.
He was like God to me. When I first started going to clubs, I was already a fan of his. But when I first started seeing him perform, I could see there was some kind of like, there was a problem, you know what I mean? Like he couldn't quite get to grips with me, and I couldn't quite get to grips with that, you know what I mean? And it took a little while for me and him to sort of balance out. As far as I'm concerned, it might not be the case in his head, but in my mind, that's how it kind of panned out. But that MCD is one of the best rappers ever.
A lot of people I spoke to in the past, they, you know, because there was Berry Crude and there was Mud Fam, there's a bit of confusion about the distinction between them. So for anyone who's confused, do you want to kind of explain who Berry Crude were and who Mud Fam was?
Yeah, I mean, it is confusing because there was a point in time when it was all one. truly, if we're going to come down to kind of identifying who did what, and that becomes important at a certain point in time, because it's very easy for people to think, well, you're the most popular scene person, so maybe you did this, and really and truly, there's a lot of unsung heroes. Look, Mud Family was Skinnyman and Mongo, but I already knew them as people. But when I met them as rappers and got invited into it as the third member of Mud Family, it was already existent. That was Skinnyman and Mongo. I was already a part of what we called the Highbury Hoodlums. The Highbury Hoodlums was a bunch of us who all grew up in Highbury, and we obviously felt like we were hoodlums, so we called ourselves hoodlums. And some of them
What age was that?
genuinely were. Well, that was I was about 12 upwards to 18. Somewhere in amongst that, I sort of joined forces with Mud Family during the time of Cream of the Crop and all them events, all them battle events. But me and Skinny met each other years before that. I was like 9. Yeah, I think he's about a year older than me, so he was probably about 10 or whatever. And there's a youth club in the school where I went, and they used to have a unicycle, and we used to argue and fight over who was going to use the unicycle. And one day this random kid was on it who didn't come from the area, and I was like, whoa, yo, my friend, what are you doing on the unicycle, bro? He's like, yeah, I'm Skinnyman. Like, I was like, right, you're Skinnyman. Yeah, I do raps. I was like, let me hear your raps. And me and him were like rapping and learning to ride the unicycle. And that's literally, it sounds like a circus act, but that is literally how I met Skinnyman. And when he done his raps to me, I was just like, fucking hell. And he was like, go on, do yours. I was like, nah, you're right. I'm not good enough yet. I weren't ready. And I remember saying, yeah, I'm going to be good like these guys one day, man. And that's how I met Skinny, you know. But that's Mud Family. Berry Crew comes from the Highbury Hoodlums. It started growing. We had more members coming in. Some people were coming from outside of Highbury, so we just abbreviated it down to the Berry Crew. And that's basically where it come from, you know what I mean? So that would have been intense, shocking. Myself, my brother Farma, Sparks, his brother, the Guzzler or OD, or he had many names, and then there was later joined a guy called Twilight Eyes, and then you'd have had Nocturnal, who was an awesome rapper.
Was Tibbs ever?
Tibbs, yeah, he was in Mud Fam, and then Nova and NASA and all them guys come to Mud. They were part of Mud Fam. Much years later, when I kind of was not really representing Mud Fam musically, I was really doing Task Force at that point. You know, Task Force came after all of them. People were in jail, people were going here, people were going there. We all had different ideas, work ethics. The street was getting the better of some of us. There was different things were going on for all of us, you know what I mean? Me and my brother, we sort of locked into music, and our music work ethic was not like anyone else's around us, so we just stuck with each other and just went in on Task Force, and that's basically how all of that happened, man. But they are 3 different things, you know, and the Mud Family thing. To be honest, Skinnyman, for me, Skinnyman, out of everyone, he's who put me in the first studio I ever went in. He's who gave me all kinds of different opportunities. He has a lot to do with it. And then you've got Intense from the Berry Crew, who really taught me a lot about how to be alive and to be confident. And after some of the horrible shit I went through as a kid, he taught me how to understand how to look after myself and stand up for myself and not be afraid, you know what I mean? And actually find the strength in myself to be kind of irrepressible. And not only that, he taught us how to rap as well and freestyle, because Intense V is and always will be to me an absolute legend and a hero, you know. So, but out of all of us, out of the Mud Fam and Berry Crew, I think Skinnyman and Intense V, they were the leaders.
Deal Real. What is your biggest memory of Deal Real?
Yeah, we were always in there. I mean, I bought a lot of records, so I was in all the record shops. But Deal Real you could chill out in, you know what I mean?
So did you ever link up with people like Tony Vegas at the other shops?
Yeah, and Mr. Bongos, I was always in there, but I never really spoke with them guys. Not in the same way, you know, like now I would. But again, it's like, I'm a difficult person for people to understand whether to talk to me or not sometimes, because I'm quite quiet. I have social anxieties, so I understand that people don't really know how or what, you know. So sometimes my communications with everyone else, I am fully aware that it's more to do with me than anyone else. People, you know what I mean? But all of these people have been around me all my life, and I've got nothing but love and respect for them. But I'm not the most you will see me talk more now than you will in any other circumstance. If I'm on a stage, I become animated. Yeah. But outside of that, I'm just really quiet.
I think a lot of artists do. Like, a lot of artists are introverted, and then they get on stage, and it's almost like they become a
switch.
completely different person.
It's the only place I've ever understood confidence.
You've done ridiculous amounts of recordings, and one of the ones that is prominent, obviously, is your Music from the Corner series that you did. There's 5 of them, from what I recall.
5, yeah.
How did that come about? Whose idea was that in the beginning? Was it you? Was it Farma? What was it?
No, there's never no one idea with me and Farms. Everything we created, we shared, ultimately fairly, even just unconsciously. So if I might have thought of this, he would have thought of that. If I wrote the concept for that, he wrote all the beats for everything. Everything was always mutual with me and my brother. To a degree, it's almost kind of scarily psychic, because we're like twins, but we're not. You know what I mean? But we have the same thoughts and the same ideas sometimes.
Is that why there's a constant clash? Because ever since I've known you, there has been a constant clash.
Yeah, no, we've had moments where we've got on really well. But to be honest, like there's nothing I would publicly say about my brother in a negative light, because he's my brother. So ultimately, all I can say is he's amazing, and we've really learnt a lot from each other to grow. Where we are right now, our relationship as human beings outside of art is probably irreparable, and that is to me. But that's life, and that's fine. You know what I mean? And I personally, that's the only way I can cope with our relationship right now, is knowing that it's not going to be repaired. And maybe that's me. That's not him talking. That's me. But musically speaking, man, like he's a legend. He's an absolute awesome dude,
of course,
man.
he's earned
And
his
everything
place.
he's doing, I hope it goes supremely well for him. And that's all any of us could do. He's one of the best beat makers I've ever come across. He's always brought the best out in me as an artist and a lyricist. So between us, when we done the MFTC thing, the name itself, funnily enough, it came about, like I was saying earlier, is I'm always absorbing words and reading everything I'm seeing. I'd be walking from where I used to live in Camden to my mum's flat where we used to record, and there was this little church, and it didn't look like a church, it looked like an office, and it was called the Church on the Corner. And the acronym of that was COTC, Church on the Corner. Right. And I just thought, that's a fucking sick name, And I was walking back down, going through the little back streets, and I was thinking to myself, Church on the Corner, man, how can I use that? And I just thought, music from the corner. I was like, boom, yeah, music from the corner. So I got home, I was like, Robin, listen now. I was calling up Farms, saying, Rob, listen, music from the corner. He's like, yeah, music from the corner. I was like, yeah, we're away, let's go. And we wanted to do it because we'd done the new mic order with Vadim and them. Done the Mud Family project with Ronin Records, and we'd put out Voice of the Great Outdoors with Braintax. And each one of them projects seemed to do well, but we didn't receive any money. And we've always been financially difficult, so money was important to us, but at the same time not as important as art. So we were very kind and generous. Oh, you have that, you do that. Yeah.
Would you put some of that down to naivety?
Yeah, of course. The older me would tell the younger me not to do it, but then the younger me would say, respect my choices, elders, you know what I mean? Because you're young, and sometimes that naivety of youth is actually the confidence that makes you so special. When that goes is when you get called falling off, you know what I mean? Because that confidence, that naivety of feeling untouchable disappears at some point in time. We all go there, we all get there, everyone will get there. But for us, it was like, you know what, let's just put out our own thing. And let's not go in the studio. And we're not going to lie to ourselves. We don't know how to use studio equipment. We're not trained like that. We're rappers, you know what I mean? He's a producer, but we ain't understanding all of this and all of that. And like we can see other people know all of that stuff, and we're just like, I don't even know what you're doing. We're just going to twist things and push things and do whatever until it sounds a way that I can sell it. And that was the most financially profitable things we ever put out.
So basically, you've done all these things with Vadim, with Jazz Fudge, you've done the stuff with Braintax, with Low Life, but you got nothing from it. Then you do something independently, and suddenly you see money coming in.
So you start seeing making money.
See the depth of that.
Yeah.
It pains me to know that there's someone of your caliber of MC that basically is telling me these stories, and it doesn't stop. There's millions of artists like you.
That's how it is. But I mean, in general, look, for artists nowadays, especially, I mean, we have to evaluate why we're going to sign to a label. It's like, what is this label going to do for me? They're probably not going to make me no money because they're going to spend it all selling me.
But they can help you with the awareness.
But they might make me more popular, so then I can go independently and use that platform to sell myself. And now that's the only reason to do it on some of these big labels. It appears evident, and we call some of these big labels independent, but it's not independent no more. It's ridiculous, you know what I mean?
The way I see it is like if you as an independent artist made 1,000 records and you sold 1,000 records, it'd be a lot more beneficial than you doing 20,000 through a record label.
Yeah, it would, especially financially.
So I'm saying this is a deep lesson for artists to learn.
There's something in independence that is worth experiencing it anyway, just because it teaches you a few things about yourself. Also, like, you know, I'm quite a difficult character, and I don't like to have people involved in my errors. This is why I'm always on my own, because I just tend to I just don't need the complications of worrying about other people's thoughts or responsibility of another person. I just do everything on my own.
Cosmic Gypsies, that's one of your most well-known tracks, works of art. You know, and that was obviously with Braintax and with Jehst. Now, Jehst is obviously another sick lyricist, artist, whatever. You know, what was that like in the recording studio? Did you used to go to recording studios, or did you just send your vocals and, you know, someone put it together? And
yeah, I think that particular track, we might have recorded it at Low Life Studios. I wasn't there when Jehst recorded his vocal. I just remember hearing it.
And what was your reaction? Can you do that? Sorry, you see that?
Like, wow. Okay. All right, we're not the best rappers in the country anymore. All right. No, I mean, Jehst blew our minds, man. There's been a good number of rappers who's come across our boundaries or spectrum, and we've said, like, man, we just really want to get you on a track and, like, make the world hear you quicker, because you're going to get where you're going no matter what. People like Jehst, Bad Bones, Kashmir, people like this, they're always gonna get where they're going. You can't sit here and be like, boy, we put them on a track first, I done this. And
yeah, you
there's
can't
just
do
some
that,
next superiority. I don't work like that. Like, we had them on tracks because we knew how wicked they all were, you know what I mean? And they made our tracks sound better. There was no kind of precognitive, like, oh, we're gonna make your career. It wasn't about that. That when I first heard that Jehst thing back to me, man, I was like, I was bowled over, bro. I just remember thinking, rah, this is... Like,
you have to kind of say to yourself, I have to go back to the drawing board.
Ooh, I just sat to, yeah, I mean, it's a moment where you have to sit down and say, there's a new generation. Like, this is something else, man. This is like, what? Now, my first ever memory of beating Jehst, I'm pretty sure it is correct. I'm open to correction if any of what I say is not fully correct. But my first memory of meeting Jehst, I was in Glastonbury, and I was like, at the time I was doing whatever I was doing. I was probably selling E's or whatever, and I'm dotting around in the field, and I'm with the lady and her friends who I'm with, and we're just chilling a bit high or whatever, and some kids just come up to me and he's like, yo, Chester P, and I'm like, yeah, you're right, and he's just like, bruv, let me do a rap at you. I'm saying, you know, I'm a little bit higher, to be honest, bruv, like, let me just do a rap at you. So I go on there, and he's rapping. I'm thinking, right, this guy's really fucking good. Yeah. Like, and it's not often that happens. You know what I mean? And like, we're all a bit out of our nuts, and there's a bit of spit getting spat, and like, you know, and I'm kind of thinking, oh, Jesus Christ, like, trying to. But this kid, he's actually really good. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I'm thinking, hold on, like, and I'm trying to keep my head together, like, way out of my nut, and I'm just listening to this guy, and I'm thinking, wow, man, I really, this guy is awesome. And that was actually Jehst. And even after we done the tune on Cosmic Gypsies, it took me a minute to actually put the pieces together. Oh, that was you, bro. Like, raw, you know what I mean? I'm sure he remembers it.
You've obviously inspired a lot of people. Does that come at a price?
Yeah, I mean... Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like it does. Sometimes I feel like people are always competing with me. It's like I'm 45 now, and there's like 20-year-old rappers who think it's still like it's me they need to come and battle. Where are you? It's like, fucking hell, evolve, man. Please evolve. You know what I mean? Like, it ain't me no more. There's lots of people you want to go and hassle before you hassle me, man. Jesus. But yeah, I mean, it does come at a cost. Of course it does. The thing with hip-hop is very ego-driven. It's very male and it's very ego-driven, you know what I mean? And people fail to understand that I have way outgrown that. Not in a condescending way, that's just not my lifestyle at all. Yeah. I am not like macho and all that stuff. I'm just a humble kind of person. I spend all of my time with a woman. You know what I mean? So the feminine aspect is coming out. I ain't got time for all of this beefing and all this like male nonsense that men get up to in raps especially. But they do. People think, like, for some reason that I am the guy that you need to go to be better than, and it's just like, oh man, that's just boring as hell, man. Just better yourselves, man.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I am definitely not a competition. So sometimes I feel like people are just like, every time they hear me do a rap, they think it's a starter pistol, and they all just stop going, just as, and then they stop and think, oh, hold on, I'm running on my own. I look like a right arsehole, and try and make up all these excuses as to why they're running, and really they're just competing with someone who's not competing with them.
You featured on a couple of tracks with me. Yeah, one was for the Unknown album with Hostile Takeover, and that was a chorus. Now, I have to say, for the record, I was a bit baffled why you were on a chorus and why one of my verses wasn't taken off and you being in the verse. Do you know what I mean? Because I'd already heard what you'd done with New Mic Order and everything else, and when Mark did that, I was like, why'd you do that?
Who knows? I always just trusted Mark's musical kind of guidance, to be honest. Like he did actually teach me and my brother a lot about recording. So he just said, "Do you want to do a chorus?" And I said, "I'll do whatever you want." To be fair.
See, because it was supposed to be someone else doing the chorus.
Yeah.
And then when he told me he's asked you, I'm there thinking, right, he's going to maybe call me and ask me, like, you know, do you want Chester on a verse? But he didn't. He just did it. And I'm like, why is Chester on a chorus?
Yeah, these things happen, man.
I've had a few people saying that I should ask you about Braintax, but I feel that topic has been killed and whatever. And what I understand from you is that you've let it go anyway, so it's pointless going there.
Look, he's offended people who are brothers to me. Skinnyman's family to me. If you offend Skinnyman and you've done something to him to make him feel that angry, then I will stand in his corner through thick and thin. I don't personally have a personal problem with Braintax. He did do some dodgy shit. You know what I mean? But just for me to carry on thinking about it, he doesn't owe me anything, but he owes people I know a lot of money apparently. So, you know, I'm going to always be in their corner. So I'm not going to stand here and defend him. To be honest, man, you've done some bitch shit to some people that I love, so he'll always be a bitch to me, man. But, you know, ultimately I don't have a bad bone in my body or a bad feeling about it. But, you know, I love people that he has truly disrespected. And for that reason, I'll stand in their corner. But ultimately, in terms of personal problems, I don't personally have a problem with him. If I saw him, I don't think I'd speak to him.
We have a mutual friend, Greg Hall, who you worked with, and you did a film which was called Chester P for Mayor. Now, the thing is, a lot of people thought you were actually running for mayor.
Yeah, twice now.
I mean, obviously, that was to do with the sleeping bags, and I remember calling you about that and saying I wanted to contribute, and then found out I was too late, so I was getting prepared to, like, contribute for the following year, but it never happened.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I stopped doing it.
Why was that?
It was emotionally too much for me, man. It became a case where people were phoning my phone at 3 a.m. telling me they saw a homeless person on London Bridge. Can I go and help them? And I'm saying, but wait, are you not just walking on London Bridge yourself? Yeah, so well, you just fucking help them. What difference is it going to be if I give him a fiver or you give him a fiver?
Yeah.
Just you do something. I'm in bed, bro. You know, it's like people thought I was actually St. Mungo's charity or hospice, and I'm not. I'm just me, you know. And it became quite overwhelming and kind of damaged my mental health. Not only that is the closer that I'm very good with people, especially people from that walk of life, because they can see and understand me. They know there's a reflection in me that they can see in themselves. That people with substance problems, people with drink problems, people who've come from abuse, suffered childhood abuse, whatever, we understand each other like that. We can see it on each other, all of us. And I always have had that relationship. So I get close to people like that very quickly, and we get talking on a deeper level than most charities probably ever can. Because these people trust me and know I'm not a charity. There's no God coming with me. I'm not trying to convert you. I'm not trying to preach to you. This is a real thing, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just trying to make sure you've got what you need to get you through this cold night, yeah, whatever that is. So I'm sitting with these guys, and I'm getting to a place where I'm learning a lot about the actual why people are homeless, not to generalize it. And truly, it's not necessarily something a lot of people want you to fix. And it's almost condescending, and it's almost like having a superiority complex to think to yourself, this person needs my help, when actually they ain't got nothing wrong with their lives. They're sitting there saying, why do you think I need your help? Like, you're condescending on me. My life's how I want it to be. Who are you to think I need help? I'm not asking you for help. So you offering me help is a condescension. And it hit home, it hammered home. Why are you so keen to help people? Are you okay? And I think, yeah, you know what, I'm not okay. I'm helping you because I'm trying to hide the fact that I can't help myself.
You use the word reflection. of themselves and whatever. Now, there was a scene in that film when I was watching it, and something just said to me, geez, it really hit me to the point where I thought, is Chester seeing himself in them, like years down the line? And I'll tell you that point that it was when you were talking to the guitarist guy with the missing fingers.
He passed away, yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, shit.
Yeah, he passed
But
away.
when I saw that clip, I thought to myself, wow, is Chester seeing this and thinking of himself? Like
I'm
that he could
thinking of
be
my
there?
dad more than myself, because that's what he was.
So was that what drove you to do this?
No, it has a part to do with it, but it also, when I was a young boy, there was some sexual abuse as a child, and it completely got buried underneath like substance
What, this
abuse.
is to you?
Yeah.
Wow.
So when I was a young child, I was sexually abused, and underneath all of that, there came a lot to deal with that, to get on with just getting on with your life in the kind of macho world we live in. There's no one to talk to about it, and you don't really know what to do. You know what I mean? So for me, I ended up on dealing with a lot of substances and just trying to numb myself so I could get. And before you know it, you've spent so long medicating yourself, or what you think you're doing is medicating yourself, that by the time you're old enough to actually understand what you've been doing, you've now got an addiction to these substances, you see, because you've surpassed trying to numb yourself, and you're actually in a place where you've dealt with what happened to you as a child, but now you can't deal with the abuse of your own nature, so the self-abuse is what kicks in. And for the past 20 years, that's what I've been trying to deal with. A lot of that childhood stuff, because I saw my own father being that way. He had a choice put upon him: you've got this many months to live if you don't stop drinking, blah, blah, blah. And he chose to go away and continue drinking, and he put everything that he was doing above everything that I felt was important. And I see that in myself, and then I can see. But so after years and years, I managed to finally get sober, which is the only time in my life I've ever been sober. I mean, teetotal, you know what I mean? Like, since I was about 8 years old, I've on a daily basis, taken some kind of substance, from aerosols to flipping fire extinguishers, petrol, you name it, you know what I mean? I've been through it. Like, this is a real thing, this is a real thing. I take accountability for the choices I've made as an adult, and when I'm a child, then I can avoid some of the accountability is not mine to be taken. I've got to learn not to blame myself. There are layers and layers of this that I'm still needing psychiatry to understand. So it's ongoing for me, because I got teetotal in my mid-30s, and I'd never done that before. And I knew what had happened to me, but I never actually stopped to think about its effect. And I just buried it, numbed myself. Once I start making enough money to buy certain substances that numb you even more, it's kind of like I'm in that. I'm thinking it's all cool in it, but one day it catches up with you, and you're like, fuck, I am a mess. Like, everything in my life, all my relationships, my friendships, my relationships with my family, everything is disfranchised. Everything. No one can get near me. No one can come near me. Like, I love everything, but no one can love me. And I realized all of it was a knock-on effect. And when I got sober, it rushed me. Like, it was like being beaten up. Everything just flooded back to me. The memories of it, vivid memories. Every night you're waking up in sweat and tears, and family members and different things are going on in your head, and you're trying to reach out for help. And this is when I really started having a breakdown, and I did reach out for help. And people were just abandoning me left, right and centre, and there was a lot of talk, but no one was actually around me except for my partner, and there wasn't no heroes, and there wasn't, you know what I mean? Everything that I worked for in hip-hop culture, everything I tried to fight to be, it seemed like it turned against me. It's like, oh, bruv, man, you're depressing, you're negative, you're this, you're that. And no one was actually hearing me saying what I'm actually saying is, you know what, I'm trying to deal with something that's quite real,
Yeah.
And that for me, when I done the homeless stuff, is when I got sober. And rather than actually be able to stop myself and say, man, you really need to work on yourself. Like, you're making a bit of money. I was making good money. I weren't spending it on drinks. I weren't buying drugs. So the money I was making, I was keeping. And I'm not used to that, you know what I mean? My money's always going up my nose or in my belly or wherever it's going. I've got bare different drug problems. So there I am. I'm making this money. I'm saving it. And I wanted to do something nice with the money. And that's why I did the homeless thing. By doing that, it made me realize, actually, you're just running away from the same thing you're always running away from. And, one thing led to another. I ended up back on the drink. Here I am, however many years after that scenario, still caught up in the same mess. And yeah, it has a lot to do with that. And yeah, I do see myself in all the homeless people. It's not because they're homeless, it's because they are institutionalized. They do not want a part of the system as we know it, and I don't want a part of it either, because it defends paedophiles and it defends rapists and masochists, and you know, people like me, we get locked up for flipping decades and decades for nothing. Do you know what I mean? A lot of my friends are in jail because they was abused, and they're doing 10, 15 years, while the people who abused them are getting 6 months and running around fostering children.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's a crazy world.
Yeah, it is.
You know what I mean?